Hey guys, welcome into the Bear With Us podcast. I am Jack. He is Frank, as always. Frankie, we have no Bears game to break down for this week. We are it's a bye week, which I can't believe how many teams have bye. There's 6 teams. Like I could understand week 14 being like Bears Packers, like 2 teams. There were 6 teams this season that didn't have a bye until the end of the year. That's crazy to me.
Dude, I am going to miss out on the fantasy playoffs in at least 2 leagues because I have 3 starters out in one and 4 in the other. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm benefiting from a couple of guys sitting, so I'm not that upset about it. I also don't have to watch the Colts play again. I mean, Frank, that was still one of the funny. It's 21-19. Fourth quarter, boom, 54-19. Like that was
nuts.
That was wild. And now that we're I feel like time is just a flat circle because now we're right back to talking about Jim Harbaugh coming to Indianapolis to save the franchise, which is a conversation we had last year for the Bears, which I just thought that was funny. But in regards to what we're going to be talking about this week, Frank and I thought it would be a good time to, it's late enough in the year to talk about some of some positives from the season, whether it's players, whether it's coaches, whether it's, whatever it may be, and obviously talk about some of the more disappointing aspects that, Frank and I didn't necessarily see coming or, hoping would translate a little bit better this season. So Frank, do you want to, I know we typically like to start in the positives on this podcast, but is that the route you want to go?
Yeah, let's start positive, Jackie,
right.
Because I do think, and the reason why I want to start there though, and people who have followed us for quite some time, remember the end of the tenure of Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky and sort of how down we were, because realistically, if Mitch pans out, if he is what we, think Justin Fields is now, they'd probably still be here. And I say that to say, I think we have our guy. So just because of that, we have much more to be positive about. So let's start positive.
Well, I would say the positive being, let's start with the offensive line. Because I feel like going into this year, we weren't quite sure what the line would look like, who would be around next year. I mean, there were literally 5, 6, 7 question marks total. And I feel like we're sort of at a point now where I would argue there are 2, maybe 3 carryovers that you can start next season, that being Braxton Jones as your left tackle, Cody Whitehair at center or left guard. Frank, that's something I'm kind of surprised they haven't at least tried. I know Sam Mustipher is, whatever, but Cody Whitehair he played center for quite some time early in his career. I'm surprised they haven't tried that, but I guess they just want some continuity. But you can absolutely bring him back. And then Tevin Jenkins as your right guard. I think he's absolutely established himself as the starter there. Can you upgrade those positions if Orlando Brown wants to come to the Bears, with his connection to Ryan Poles? Absolutely bring him, start him over Braxton Jones. That's fine. But do you have to? I don't think you do. I think you might have 3 starters on the offensive line. And, I would ideally like them to either sign a center or draft one. But, if they want to invest more money or capital at the right tackle spot and just, think they have something in Lucas Patrick, if he can stay healthy, fine, whatever.
Yeah, no, and I think to sort of put the cherry on top of being optimistic about where the offensive line is right now, you touched on Cody Whitehair's versatility. Tevin Jenkins came in as a right tackle. And, he didn't look bad last year at it, in my opinion. I think he's looked better at guard, but that could also just be getting more reps there and getting more comfortable there. But I think that allows some flexibility in the draft or free agency. Just like you said, if there's a really good left guard on the market, or if you're drafting the best left guard available in the 2nd or 3rd, push Cody to center. You know what I mean? And then the same thing with Tevin Jenkins. If there's a really good right guard or, really good right tackle, you have that option because he can play both right guard or right tackle. So I think that is a big thing. And I will say too, I know we haven't touched Larry Borom. He's probably more in the negative part of things because we thought he could take a step forward. But having someone like that who has the reps in this offense, he'll be going into year 3. That's a really good swing tackle to have. I'd feel more comfortable with him being my backup right tackle and potentially left tackle over Riley Reiff with the age differentiation. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's a lot of positive things about the offensive line this year. The biggest thing that, and you touched on this, that we need to do is upgrade from center. We can't. I mean, Sam Mustipher isn't even a backup, I don't think, at this point. He's just not very good at the NFL level. So, yeah. And to me, what that means is we need to sign one and probably draft one in the mid rounds.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. And, I would love to be able to put him in the positives. And I'm hoping that, in by the end of the season, by the very end, we can put Alex Leatherwood as, potential, at least competing for the right tackle spot or, somewhere on the offensive line. Because I do want to see them give him more of an opportunity. He had played about, I think it was like 10 snaps or so against the Packers, and I thought he looked pretty good. I don't love that they're going on the rotation at this point, and giving, having him switch with Riley Reiff. Like, we'll talk about this in a little bit in regards to the coaching staff. One of our overall disappointments. So I'll actually say, I'll say in regards to him. But if Alex Leatherwood can, play a little bit more towards down the stretch here, give you something else to think about, right? Because you and I were a couple weeks ago even saying, well, it's, guarantee they're going to sign Jack Conklin or Mike McGlinchey out of San Francisco. Like they're gonna get one, or they're gonna draft one, and all this stuff. But like, he was a first round pick in 2021. You obviously thought enough of him to sign him off waivers. He's going to be here next year. Why not just find out what you have? So maybe that pans out. And again, if it does, that's great, because then you can sort of allocate your resources elsewhere, which the Bears just have so many holes. Like that would be a huge boon if they're able to get something out of Alex Leatherwood. Positives on, let's just say offense. Running backs. I'll say this, but not in the sense that you might think. Obviously, Khalil Herbert is the future starter of this team. There's no two ways around that. I think a big positive and a question mark that we sort of had was, what would this offense look like with Luke Getsy as the play caller? And I think one thing we've seen with the success that they've had with David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, Darrynton Evans, is that you can kind of put anyone back there and it will work essentially the same. So that's to me, that's a great sign, because you don't need to invest a ton of money into the running back position. You don't need to draft Bijan Robinson in the first or second round. You can get away with having above average to average guys and you'll be fine.
I agree to an extent, because you know how I feel about running backs, and I'm not advocating to like draft one in the first or second round. But where did Kenneth Walker go, in the fourth
round?
Look at how big of I love Khalil Herbert. I think he has done phenomenal. He's more that power running type of guy. We don't have explosion back there. Guys like Kenneth Walker, even Breece Hall. I know he was a first round pick before he got hurt, or second. Was he the second round pick?
Second round.
Yeah, these guys are just explosive, and the fact that we don't have that at receiver, and even though we have good running backs at this point, I do think we just need explosive weapons from anywhere. If that means, because the only one that we have is Justin. There
you go. You already have your running back.
Oh God. Well, yeah, let them tell it, right? But to anyone, we're going to get to Justin. Trust me. He's always going to be the focal point of our conversations around the offense and this team, but we don't have anything else. You know what I mean? So it would not shock me if they drafted someone in the third or the fourth, because we're also just not in the era of bell cow. That doesn't mean that Khalil Herbert doesn't have a future on this team. That just means that they need someone to complement him. Because when you look at what him and David Montgomery do, it's not all that different. They're essentially, I think, David's a better he's more of a bouncy, static guy, like, you know, and Khalil Herbert's more of the one cut, go downhill guy. But outside of that, they both break tackles pretty well. They're both going to fight for extra yardage. Like, they're not very different from each other. So I think if you keep Khalil Herbert, you let Monty walk, you're probably going to be in the market, and probably not the free agent market, like a you know, third, fourth, fifth round, a running back who is a little bit more explosive than that.
Yeah, and to your point, that's sort of what I was more hinting at, as opposed to, you know, you don't need to draft Saquon Barkley at number 2.
Right.
Now you can take more dart throws for Rachaad White, or like you said, a Kenneth Walker or Dameon Pierce, even in the 3rd or 4th round. Like, it gives you a little bit more to work with, because even if you don't hit on one of those guys, you're still fine with Khalil Herbert or, you know, Darrynton Evans or whoever else, you know, they may decide to bring in. But I mean, you look at like around the league, like Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick, and he's getting outworked by Jerick McKinnon, who's been in the league for 40 years. Like, I just don't think that this offense needs a Pro Bowl superstar running back to be effective.
Agreed.
And that's sort of, you know, I would say positives. Wide receivers.
There's been more.
I don't know if there's a.
I know there's been more disappointment at receiver than I think any other position on offense, right?
I can't even say Chase Claypool at this point. Like,
I'm glad we have him.
I'll save him. Yeah. I'm glad he's there. Let's say wide receivers for disappointments, because there's just so much more to talk about there. Quarterback. I mean, what more needs to be said? Like, here's the thing, Frank. I have a question for you that is more. It's to you. I'm asking it to you, but it's really for everybody. I keep seeing it with Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson and the whole, you know, oh, he's just a running back thing. And especially because now the NFL Twitter account is posting about Justin Fields. So you're getting your more usual
wider
trolls and things like that. And I keep seeing people being like, well, those are rushing touchdowns, not passing touchdowns. And who fucking cares? Who gives a shit if your quarterback is throwing touchdowns versus running for touchdown? I don't understand why that. Who cares? 6 points is 6 points. Touchdowns are touchdowns. Why? I don't understand why it matters if your quarterback is able to run for a touchdown versus throwing for 40 touch. Like, at this point, he has 13 passing touchdowns, or I think it's like 8 rushing touchdowns or something like that, some ridiculous number. And I will clarify while I'm talking, because I want to make sure that we get the absolute correct information before I start talking. 13 passing touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns. It's a pretty good season. 21 total touchdowns. It's pretty fucking good, Frank. Like, I just don't understand why that's such that's used as a negative towards those running quarterbacks.
I mean, I think historically, especially for black quarterbacks, they get that critique much more than anyone else, to a point where there was a lot of, I don't know if you remember this, Jack, but was it 24/7? Well, what was there was a scouting site that had kids' profiles and things, where it was basically cut and dry, where all the white quarterbacks in high school were listed at quarterback, and the black quarterbacks were listed as dual threat quarterback.
Dual threat.
Yeah. And I remember that being, you know, people making a really big thing, like, what the hell are we doing here? But we've touched on the racial factor before. We know that's a thing. We know the discrimination that black quarterbacks have faced in the scouting process, in the NFL draft and things. Even, I mean, I remember Lamar Jackson, and I may have even used this example before, like in his press conferences at the combine, they were asking, would you ever consider going to receiver? He's like, no, I'm a quarterback. No, I'm a quarterback. The answer, no, I'm a quarterback. I'm here to be quarterback. And, you know, you didn't get that with, I mean, even like Trevor Lawrence is an awesome athlete. You could probably play that dude at tight end. He's fucking huge. Andrew Luck. Like, he eats 3 more burgers and he could be your left tackle. Like, these dudes are big, you know what I mean? Like, big guys that are very athletic. And I know people use the examples of, was it not Wes Welker? Who was Julian Edelman? He was a receiver. Yeah, he was a quarterback in college. He went to receiver, correct, to survive in this league.
Because he's
Lamar Jackson.
5'2".
Yeah, well, and one of the things too is he just wasn't good enough to be a quarterback. That's the problem, is that these guys who are good enough to be quarterback, who happen to be black, are being asked these same questions. Because we've seen Terrell Pryor also do that, because it wasn't about him being black, it was about him not being good enough at quarterback. Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson are good enough to be quarterbacks.
I don't know how you watch those throws, those deep balls that he threw on.
And that's exactly what I was just going to get to. So then people keep moving the goalposts. Well, first it was his mechanics that Chris Sims touched on. And I don't think he was ever racially motivated. He was just sort of critiquing things that it never came across as racial to me with him. But he was critiquing that. People took that and, well, look at he's cleaned all that up. And it wasn't ever as exaggerated as I think Chris Sims ever made it out to be anyway, but he's cleaned that up. And then it was, well, he's never thrown for 200 yards, just throws for 250. And there's still issues. Well, he's still a running back that can just throw a little bit. And my thing is, when you say someone can't throw, it's less about stats for me and more about their throwing motion, their ability to put touch on a football, their ability to place balls where they need to be. I never had that question mark for Justin Fields. When I think of people like that, I think of Zach Wilson, I think of Tim Tebow, I think of just that type of player who just is very inaccurate. Their throwing motions aren't that great, or they're just way too long, and they're not consistent from throw to throw. Like you can't just point to the few times Justin misses per game. Every quarterback misses every game. You don't throw. Patrick Mahomes has about a handful of throws every play where you're like, wow, that was a bad throw, but he just makes up for it because he's fucking great. So like, if we're gonna do that, you can do that for every quarterback. And like, to see him now put together these games where he's throwing the ball well, because our biggest critique was never his throwing motion, was never his accuracy, because he's always been a good deep ball thrower. It was about making quicker decisions and, speeding up his ability to read the defense, because that's been another critique as well. He can't read defenses. He always has been able to. It was about the speed of the game. It was about doing it faster. You can clearly tell, even in year one, that he was going through his reads. It was just way too slow because he was a fucking rookie. That's what happens. You're not used to playing against NFL players. And he's checked all those boxes. So I know you were going to get to it, so I hope I didn't steal too much of your point, but like, anyone saying that he's not a passer is insane. He may be a better runner at this point, just because, I mean, there's not much that you can do to improve at being a runner. You either have it or you don't, and he fucking has it. You know what I mean? Like, You could always be better at something as a passer, no matter who you are. But yeah, I mean, he's incredible, dude. And anyone who has any sort of like real critique about him, that's trying to paint him to not be the guy, I truly don't. It's either one, you don't know or watch football, or two, you have an ulterior motive. Whether it be you didn't like his college, or you don't like the Bears, or you don't like him because of his skin color. There's an ulterior motive there. You can't look at what this guy's put on tape and at least say, like, yeah, he has a, like, if you're not at the point where you can be like, he has a chance to be the guy, you're just completely off of his bandwagon, something's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Kevin Cole from Pro Football Focus. I was going to say PFF, and then I was going to go through the whole thing, and I got tongue-tied, Frank. He finished top 5 in quarterback EPA. Jared Goff, 0.53, Jalen Hurts, 0.50, Pat Mahomes, 0.38, Joe Burrow, 0.37, Justin Fields, 0.30. Like, Justin Fields had an awesome game on Sunday. And if you look at, if all you're doing is looking at, well, look at those interceptions. All I see are 2 interceptions. It's like, you weren't watching the game. Why bother commenting? Like, you're not paying attention. And Frank, he's the biggest positive. We could have just started this podcast with saying, what's the positives of this year? Justin Fields. And ended it there. And it would still cover everything else. Like, I sent you a tweet that I saw. It was someone who broke the games down basically by thirds. Justin Fields, really not great in the first 3 games. 51% completion, around 297 passing yards total, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions with a 50 rating. Then games 4 through 6, we started to see the explosion a little bit more. 57 completion percent, 572 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception for an 87.3 rating. And then games 7 through 11, 64% completion, 773 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions for almost basically 100 rating. Like, we got exactly what we wanted in terms of him growing as a quarterback. And that's just passing stats. That doesn't take into account all of the rushing that that shouldn't just be discounted. how good of a run. I mean, that play where he ran for the touchdown, I mean, he's breaking dude's ankle. Like, that is insane that the Bears have a quarterback that's able to do that. That's
Dude,
crazy.
And I meant to say this on the post game, but we sort of got caught up in other things. It looks like sometimes like he's playing against Pop Warner players. When he breaks off those fucking runs, you see that in Pop Warner, dude, where he's just like, you look at him and he's just better. There's nothing else to break down on those plays. He is just the better fucking athlete, the better player, the best player on the field in those moments. It's insane to watch.
I mean, it just looks so easy for him. And like, you know what? One thing that I really I genuinely loved, and we didn't talk about it at all on the post game show either. When he scored the touchdown, like, I kind of loved that he was doing, like, he was dancing a little bit. Like, he finally looked like he was having fun out there again. And I need more of that in my life. I need to just know that he's doing all right. And you know, Frank, I was actually very impressed by his play overall, and I feel like we didn't give him enough credit, even though we talked about him for about 40 minutes or so. But like, he didn't take any stupid hits.
Yeah.
Like, he was in control. I know he didn't run obviously a lot in the second half, and you wonder how much of that was maybe the coaching staff being like, all right, let's, we told you not to run, you ran. Like, what are we doing here? But I thought he played very smart. We're seeing it from the passing stats. We're just watching him grow as a passer. He looks like he's more comfortable. Looks like he knows what he's seeing now. All of the big NFL analysts used to talk about the second year being the most important for a quarterback.
And he has blown that. But Jack, and that was the thing that we touched on in the post game, like people who still have questions about him, because again, he does have things I don't even want to say things he needs to get better at this point. It's really just stacking games like he had against the Packers, and then potentially even getting one with the game-winning drive. That may not happen this year because he didn't have the supporting cast. But anything that you have a question mark, or maybe just an unchecked box for Justin Fields, like at this point, how can't you give him the benefit of the doubt? He's checked every other fucking box. I mean, it's like someone who's like so brilliant at being a musician, and you're like, all right, well, you did like your country album that was amazing. You did your R&B album that was amazing. You did your hip hop album that was amazing. I think you could do a rock album if you really wanted to, like, but maybe it's just not ready. You're not ready to do it yet. Like, but if with your track record, I think you could do it. Like, that's how I feel with Justin. If you think he has to be better at the quick game or whatever, there's nothing that tells that he's shown that tells me he could not get better at whatever you think he can get better at, because it's not about just his physical talent. It's very clear to me, going from one quarterback who was lost for 4 years, and sorry, Mitch, I know I keep picking on you, but you're the perfect example here, to making no improvements, no adjustments. He just was who he was, to someone who has gotten better. You see it with your own eyes. So that tells me he's breaking down film. He knows what he's seeing on defense. He knows what he's seeing on this film, and he knows how to get better, because it's been very rare that we've seen him make the same mistake twice. Think about going back to last year, Jack. Remember when he would do those little spin outs and he cracked his damn ribs doing it and fumbled a couple times? We're like, dude, can't keep doing that. Have we seen that at all this year? No.
I don't think so.
And Jack, the face you made, you forgot about it. That's how little he does it now. You forgot about it, and that's a good thing. But I'm saying, like, he's broken every bad habit that he has. He's gotten better with his footwork. He's gotten better with his arm angles. We haven't seen the 3-quarter toss either since me and you have been saying you got. And I'm not saying we're the reason, but I'm just saying it's very clear that he knows he can't keep doing that. Yeah. Like he's made these improvements, dude. Like, it's so impressive to see what he's done over 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue into talking about the positives of the coaching staff, because I mean, Luke.
Can we get to Cole Kmet? We got to talk Cole Kmet before we get there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we could kind of wrap them in together, because it really goes into what I was just going to say overall, which is, I mean, Luke Getsy, like, as much criticism as we had for him on Sunday, with his play calls, his decisions. I don't know how you can be mad about this year just overall. I mean, he's done everything we asked him to do. Get Cole Kmet involved. Have rollouts, move the pocket, make things easier for Justin Fields as opposed to what he was being asked to do last year in his rookie season. I mean, these are all things we wanted to see, and these are things that we have seen. The Bears' offense, Frank, it's the best part of the game every week. Every week since like week 4 like onwards. Like the Bears,
Yeah.
like it's gotten to the point, Frank, where it's like I want the other team to score quickly so that Justin can get the ball back.
Jack, I swear to God, I was just gonna say that as my final thought of everything. Where I'm like, when the Bears defense gives up a drive, whether it's short or long, and I don't care what the end result is, a turnover, touchdown, I'm just ready for Justin to get the ball again.
Right. Right. And again, I think Luke Getsy deserves a ton of credit for what he's been able to do with very limited resources. Jumping back to Justin Fields real quick, you think about those quarterbacks I mentioned that he was basically in the same grouping with just in terms of his play. Think about the weapons that they have versus what he's working with. And it's just like, and again, those are passing numbers. Those aren't rushing. It's not rushing. He was making those throws to Equanimeous St. Brown and Chase Claypool, and like it was insane what he was able to do. And again, I think Luke Getsy deserves a ton of credit for helping him break a lot of those bad habits, cleaning up some of that footwork that we wanted to see improved. So yeah, this coaching staff I thought has been very good on the offensive side of the ball. Again, some hiccups here and there. He's a rookie play caller. I hope to see that. I still think there's a ton of room to grow for him as well to maybe again layer this offense when they get some more pieces to work with. Something we talked about on Sunday. Yeah, I'll let you take Colkin back because I mean. It's been nice to see, Frank.
It has no, and he's answered the call because not for nothing, his second year wasn't bad. It's just that it got sort of, brushed over because of just the wreck that Matt Nagy wound up being, and the team in general. But the same way that you've touched on experts saying that like the second year is a huge year for the quarterback, the third year for a tight end. That's the tell-all year. That's whether you're picking up that fifth-year option. That's whether you're going to potentially re-sign them. And he looks really, really good. And just like you said, him and Justin are damn near tied at the hip because the second that Justin, whatever flipped in there of like, all right, this is game 4 or 5, like I get it now. That's when Kmet came alive as well. And I don't want to give all the credit to Justin for that. Obviously, it's a big part of it, but also seeing him making those one-handed grabs, seeing how, he's progressed even as a blocker. He looks really, really good because he's not just like chip blocking and running a route. There are times where he's run blocking and running people over. Like he has looked really good. Do I ever think he's going to be Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or any of those guys? No, I don't. But I don't know if this offense ever is going to need that. Who's going to say no if we get like a fucking prime Travis Kelce? You know what I mean? But you get what I'm saying? Like for what things are, he seems to fit this offense perfectly. And he's just taking strides of his own. So, maybe he wasn't just fooling around at the tight end university camp with Kelce and Kittle and them boys. So because even when we had Averman and we're talking about fantasy options, like the fantasy world was really excited about him and they were really disappointed in him after the first 4 or 5 weeks because he had some donut games early.
Yeah,
and now he's a guy that, he had 2 of them. And now he's a guy that, maybe a league winner for someone who picked him up on the waiver wire in week 5 or 6. So it's been awesome to see him come along. And especially because the biggest thing is we talk about guys who have looked good or the positives, like that's just one less hole we have to fill.
Exactly.
Because he's the undisputed, like granted, you're always going to sign like a blocking tight end and want like 3 or 4 on the roster, but as the guy, he's the guy. He's the guy at tight end and it's really good to have.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about trying to find another pass-catching tight end to sort of give you another weapon because he fills that role right now.
Hey, Jackie, he had a few reps at the slot, too, against the Packers.
I saw that, and I liked how they were trying to get him the ball a little bit more, and I want to with Darnell Mooney out, I want to see that as again, it's something we talked about. I want to see them start forcing the ball to their best playmakers a little bit more. That's just, I want to start seeing that. And again, Frank, literally everything I was upset about and after week 11 and they were going into the Jets or week 12 and they were going into the Jets game and obviously, whatever is what it is. He didn't even play, but like I wanted to, because I talked about it. Like we'd seen Justin grow as a runner. He's one of the best now. Like I want to start seeing him evolve as a passer. Checked everything I wanted to see this year. Those deep throws, man, like that, those weren't gimmicky. He was placing that throw to N'Keal Harry, dude. Like that is just the good stuff. That's just fucking elite type shit. And that was like, we saw that once every 4 games from Mitch. And again, I'm not trying to pick on Mitch specifically, but like he was the first quarterback that they drafted highly, right? That you and I had really been like super into football at that point. Rex Grossman is a whole other story, but like this is the first time you and I got to see sort of that quarterback development in this new age of football, right? And just watching the development between where Mitch was at this point versus where Justin, I mean, you can't even compare.
It's light years.
You can't even compare. And again, that's not to pick on Mitch. He just wasn't that type of prospect. Justin, I mean, it's hard not to just feel lucky. Like, it's wild to say because the Bears have had so many issues with the quarterback position, but now it's like finally other teams are starting to wonder, what if we had drafted Justin Fields? You know, like, did we miss out? And Dude, it's like, it's just nice. It's just nice.
How weird I just as a Bears fan, how weird is that to see like people fawning over a Bears quarterback? I mean, because the last time that it ever happened for us, or the only other time I should say, was when we traded for Jay, because we weren't the only suitors for Jay. Like, there was a ton of other teams in on him because he was just young and had so much promise. But that obviously was different. Like, we drafted him, we're developing him. Like, Justin is a homegrown prospect of the Bears, and it's never happened for us.
It is very, very, very weird to me. But yeah. I gotta be honest, I'm very happy. But
really quick before, because I know we'll get into some negatives and things that'll contain a lot of the defense, receivers and such, and then we can probably end with like pros and cons of the coaching staff just in general. But it's like that's what annoys me sometimes with people getting so upset at Justin, with the couple of picks that he throws against the Packers, or not being able to get the wins and everything. And it's like, one, we touched on how this probably wasn't a playoff team anyway. Not probably. It wasn't. I mean, we both thought they could win 6 to 8 games at the high end. And like 5 was the floor. We're probably a little bit wrong about the floor. It looks like they're going to maybe win only one more game, if that. But the thing is like, Justin's bringing a level of excitement to this town that we have not had since Derrick Rose before his knee injuries. Like, just be happy for a minute. Like, just like live in this right now. Yeah. Because we have no idea how this coaching staff is going to continue to build around him, or I should say the total regime is going to build around him, and what's going to happen from there. But the one thing we know for certain is that if this is the floor right now of entertainment, we're going to be okay. Because I mean, he's doing this with these guys around him. You know what I mean? And that's why I get so upset with people where it's like, well, why he's not the guy? It's not because of the things you're talking about. It's because he's not winning yet. And it's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, just be happy. I feel like at that point you're looking for reasons to be angry or be upset. And it's like, if you're hearing this from me, I am the most pessimistic person that I know. And if you're hearing this from me, you have a problem. Like, you're beyond pessimism. You're like cynical at that point. And I don't think I'm a cynicist just yet, but I hate that people just can't live in the moment. Once we get to the offseason and we see the upgrades and but let's get there. And then maybe you can say, well, now he's got to show me that he can win. Fair. But any sort of expectation that you have right now of this team is only because of how good Justin is now. Does that make sense? Like, you didn't have those expectations coming into this year with this kid. But now that he's shown you what he is, now all of a sudden, he's got to win. You weren't saying that before the year. Right. That's what's bothering me. And all these fucking articles, and you shared a few with me via Twitter of what was the one stupid one? Yeah, like it's not a good thing that Justin's
this team sucks, but why haven't they won yet?
Yeah. But my thing is like, these are also the same writers. I guarantee you it's like the Jeff Passans and all those dudes and Jay Mariotti. I don't know if he still writes, but he was one of them back in the day. They would do this, but the opposite in Lovie Smith's tenure. Oh, here we go with our fault. We win the last 4 games of the year and we ruin our draft pick to go 7-9 instead of, 3 and 13. And it's like, but now we're actually losing, but we're showing and now you have a problem with it. I guarantee you can pull up a lot of these same dudes from the Tribune and from wherever else they're fucking writing, the Sun Times, from these tenures when we would win late when it didn't matter anymore, and they were complaining about it for draft picks. You just can't fucking please some of these guys.
That's because they know Bears fans enjoy being miserable, and they write to that.
That's fair.
I mean, let's call it what it was, No, Frank, I completely agree with you. At this point, if you're, again, Frank, I think it really goes back to what we've talked about before, where it's just like, I don't know if Bears fans know what they're supposed to be looking for, because all they see is the finished product. For a lot of these guys, the Peyton Mannings, Tom Brady's, Drew Brees, more, newer guys like Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. A lot of Bears fans didn't see the growth of those quarterbacks because they weren't watching them every single Sunday. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a little bit different. But just like Jalen Hurts, I think, is a great example. Bears fans weren't watching Eagles games, and the Eagles weren't on national games every single week because they weren't the team they are right now, or even the team they were towards the end of last year. So you just didn't see a lot of the development that goes into why Jalen Hurts has been able to become one of the better passers in the league. And they see that with Justin Fields, and they're like, why is that not happening already? Why aren't we winning? And it's like, that's not how it worked. And again, it's kind of the same thing with Trevor Lawrence, where it's like, yes, they're year 2 quarterbacks, but I mean, both of them are basically in their rookie years.
Yep.
And not for nothing, Trevor Lawrence has a lot better weapons to work with than Justin Fields does. Like, I would take Christian Kirk in a heartbeat on this team. Don't get me wrong, but I just think it's just inexperience and just not understanding what Bears fans should be looking for in Justin Fields. Because I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. You hear the interceptions be brought up. It's like, are you watching the game though? Like, are you really that upset that he threw 2 picks? Like, watch the fucking game. One was a terrible route by Equanimeous St. Brown. The other was Justin trying to make a play. How can you fault him for that?
Oh, 100%. And that's the one thing that I've always been steady on with quarterbacks, and it was why I was always, more of a Jay supporter when he was here, because I will gladly take someone who's aggressive and throws some picks every now and then for the sake of trying to make a play versus, check down quarterback, super safe, get us to 7-8 wins every year because you build around him nicely. Fuck that. That doesn't get you anywhere. The other guy may not get you anywhere either, but it's not for lack of trying. And if that's what Justin winds up being, which I don't think it'll be that, like cut and dry, where it's just like he's either going to win you a game or lose your game. I think he's much better than that. But it's, just like you said, just those single plays, when you're trying to make those plays, shit's going to happen sometimes. You're playing other NFL talent. You're going to throw a pick every now and then.
For sake of time, Frank, hear me out. I think we should save the negatives for next week, since we won't have a game to really break down as well.
Oh, that's fair.
That's fair. We're already sort of at our normal time.
Do you want to talk about the positives of the coaching staff then, and then we'll do all negative next week?
Yeah, I think we'll stick. Let's keep this nice and light, right? The holiday season is upon us. We'll get into the bah humbug stuff next week before we talk about the Bears game. I don't even know who they're playing, and doesn't matter because they're on a bye week this week. So we talked about some of the offensive things Luke Getsy has been able to do. I'd love to talk a little bit about some of the positives on the defensive side of the ball. There really aren't a ton, so obviously that'll be pretty quick. And then Matt Eberflus and maybe Ryan Poles as well. Let's start with the obvious, right? Jack Sanborn, Jaquan Brisker. Mm-hmm. Had some nice young guys step up. Eddie Jackson looked really not really good. He looked serviceable. He looked good. He looked the best he's ever looked in 4 years in this defense. So there are definitely some guys who were able to step up. And even not for nothing, Kyler Gordon. Listen, he's a rookie corner. They're gonna have some rough games. He's had some positives. Let's be at least somewhat respectful, if you will.
I think the positive way to view him right now is that Kyle Fuller he looked very similar his rookie year. So sometimes with corners, the first season isn't the tell-all or even like anywhere close to the tell-all.
Yeah, and there's just been some guys that they've found, Jack Sanborn, like I mentioned, obviously pretty much diamond in the rough type shit. Like can start next year. Who knows what he'll end up being in the future? Who knows if he'll be an all-pro linebacker or a Pro Bowler or anything like that. But just a local kid, undrafted free agent. I'm still surprised he was undrafted though, because it's not like he played nowhere. He played at Wisconsin and was like their best defensive player. So Bears may have lucked out with that one for sure. And then Jaquan Brisker, I know he hasn't been like the superstar talent that maybe some people were hoping or expected. Frank, you remember the offseason talk about Jaquan Brisker? Like, you remember the camp stuff? This dude's going to be legit superstar quality, like all that shit. Didn't exactly play out like that. But again, rookie season.
Yeah. And I don't want to, he's looked good. And this will be the only negative thing that I say on this part. And it's not even like crazy negative. It's just that's what annoyed us about the pick. And I know we've said this in some form or fashion, but even if he was the superstar, who's the best safety in the league right now? If he was a prime Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed, what impact does it make on this defense anyway? With everything else around it. You know what I mean? Like that was why we didn't like the safety pick in general. Granted, he's been better than the corner, but yeah, I think Justin Jones is another one who seems like he should probably get like a 2 or 3 year deal, not anything crazy, but someone you plug in at defensive tackle next year. We're gonna need another one as well. But yeah, there's been a lot more negative than positive about this defense.
Justin Jones, big positive, I'd say.
Yep.
That's a good signing. That's just a quality signing. If anything, Frank, I think that gives you an idea of sort of the success that Ryan Poles can have when it comes to the main positions that we know he really focuses on. The offensive line, obviously. I think there's been more good than bad. Obviously, we didn't see Dakota Dozier, so we don't really know exactly what that was going to look like. Riley Reif, I think, has been really serviceable. I thought that was a pretty good signing. Lucas Patrick was good when he was healthy. Braxton Jones, again, 5th-round pick, but I think he kind of nailed it. But, you look at the defensive side of the ball, he was going to sign Larry Ogunjobi, medical stuff he didn't like, which at the time, you and I, and still now, honestly, we're both happy about. Like, if I would much rather Ryan Poles be like, you know what? We're not even gonna chance that. Sorry, best of luck elsewhere. I like that about him. And then bring in his backup plan being Justin Jones, who probably has been their best overall defensive player this season. I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, and you know what though, Jack? It's not like we had another interior guy on the roster at the time that was that was going to limit us to only sign both. And I know we've both said this, but it's just a thought that I had in my mind because I think we both got that idea from the media, who's maybe who's definitely more plugged in than us. But I mean, what did they sign Justin Jones for? Like 1 year, $10 million or something?
2 years.
Oh, it was a 2-year deal.
2-year deal.
2-year, like eight or $10 million a year. Who's to say they couldn't have signed? They had the money to sign both. I mean, that would have been nice to have 2 really good interior guys. I don't know if that was ever in the cards.
12 million.
Oh, so $6 million. Yeah, I mean that's $6 million a year. They could have still signed him after they signed Larry Ogunjobi. We still need another interior guy.
Yeah, there's still a lot of building to do on the defensive line. We'll obviously save some of the more negative stuff like we talked about for next week because again, there's unfortunately the defensive side of things really didn't work out the way we were kind of hoping. Because Frank, I think something that should be said, because I got a lot of questions about this, just based off kind of how our conversations have typically gone. I don't know how it sort of got lost, but Frank and I never wanted Roquan Smith to be gone from the jump. Like, you and I both were hoping that this guy would be the player that they thought he could be. We just weren't in love with the idea of spending that much money on a linebacker. But if he is that guy, pay him. That's sort of how Frank and I were always sort of going about it. And then when the game started going, we were both at that point very much like, he's probably not going to be worth this type of money. So ideally, Roquan would still be here because I saw a lot of people asking this, Frank, and that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. But you and I were never just like from the jump be like, all right, trade Roquan, let's get him out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like when sometimes when people are heavily biased in the favor of one way, in this case being like of retaining Roquan, when there's more of an objective look at it, it's looked at as a negative, because you described our position perfectly. Like, I think the only mistake that this coaching staff made was not playing him at middle linebacker. I would have loved to seen what he could have done there. But again, the flip side of that is like, and this is just me being objective, is he didn't show up to training camp at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, where they played him in that Lance Briggs role was just like, hey, just make a bunch of fucking tackles. That's probably the easiest way to plug someone in who has that kind of talent. You know what I mean? And versus like having to actually get to know the calls and do things that a middle linebacker has to do. He wasn't there to learn any of that.
And when, I mean, for us, the final straw was really when he demanded the trade request and was basically like, all right, McCaskey's, you know, it's basically up to you to keep this thing going. But it was never like when the coaching staff announced that it was going to be a 4-3. You and I weren't immediately like, all right, trade Roquan and see what we can get. You know, we thought that maybe he could be a foundational piece for the defense because they just don't have anything. They have no blue chip prospects. Like, yes, Brisker could be very good down the road, and Kyler Gordon may still develop. You know, we thought Jalen. I feel like we're getting into the more negative stuff.
I know. We need to not get so ahead of ourselves.
I'm going to pump the brakes.
But I think, Jack, I think the Roquan talk is a good segue into, if we can briefly touch on Ryan Poles. I think he played those. I mean, we talked about this earlier when he played that negotiation fucking perfect.
Agreed.
That was, I mean, a first-year GM, a first-time GM in his first year of his tenure, for him to be that savvy in all of that and really hold his ground. And again, we were super impressed with him calling press conferences throughout of like, look, this is what it is. Yeah. I offered him what I thought was fair. He took it as disrespect. And you know, not to keep diving in the Roquan thing, but I mean, there was maturity question just because he didn't have his own agent and he's doing it on his own. And it's like, we're seeing problems with players who don't have their own agents. You know,
because it just becomes personal at that point. It's not personal. It's just business.
And then him and Lamar, I think, are the two biggest examples as it stands. But even like the social media post itself, that's an immature and stupid thing to do. And you did that because you don't have an agent guiding you. Like everyone, like I remember Adam Hogue and Adam Johns on their podcast. They were like, I had people like agents. They have friends who are agents that were like, what in the fuck is he doing? Like, this is like Agent 101. You don't do something that stupid. And it wasn't that he just put something on Instagram. It was what he said in the post of it. Like, yeah. So the fact that Poles took all that in stride, I thought was phenomenal.
Savviness is something that we cannot say that he's in short supply of. Because, I mean, you think about some of the deals he was able to make, obviously trading Khalil Mack, trading Robert Quinn, who's now on the IR, trading Roquan Smith, getting what he got for him. Like, I've been impressed with some of the moves that he's had to make. And again, the things that we were essentially asking him to do, a lot of the moves he's made have made a lot of sense, including the signings that haven't necessarily worked out on the receiver side. And, you know, even some of the draft picks, you know, you and I may not agree with sort of the where they were picked, but you and I both agree that those were positions of need, right? It wasn't like he was drafting linebackers or you know, quarterbacks or anything like that. Like what he was or running backs. He was drafting things where they had holes that made sense. We may just not necessarily agree with the picks themselves or, you know, necessarily the height of those picks. But I think overall, Ryan Poles is at a very good rookie season, and a lot of what he's done has made sense. I'm very excited to see what he does with the cap space, with the multiple draft picks, and you know, a very high draft pick in the first round.
I totally agree. And to see that he had traded back so much to recoup so many draft picks in this past draft, that tells me he's not scared with this second or third pick, whatever it's going to be. If someone's, you know, coming knocking for a quarterback, he's not going to be scared to do that. Which I'm excited about. Yeah. And I think briefly with the coaching staff, I do think just an overarching positive is the culture that they're building to hear certain things. Absolutely. with and Justin's a part of that, but him, apologizing and the guys being like, "Are you fucking nuts? Like, you're our guy. You don't have to apologize for shit."
We need to play better.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome that they've cultivated this. And again, but part of that though is just getting the right players to buy in. Sometimes you're just going to have bad apples with certain things, and that doesn't seem to be the case, at least not right now. Like the message is hitting home. Are the results there? No, but the team is rebuilding. I'm not worried about results right now. I'm worried about progress and the way things look. I think you touched on Getsy quite a bit, and I think we can get to some of his negatives later, but I even think Alan Williams, before we traded Roquan and Robert Quinn, he put together some really good called games. Like he was making up.
Playing pretty well, man.
Defense was playing pretty well before those trades, and you get to a point where you're just talent depleted, and there's only so much you can do. So, the fact that most of the Bears' losses have been one score, that's a huge. I mean that because at the very least, at the baseline of NFL teams, usually if you get them, and this is going to sound really stupid, but I think people know what I mean. If you get them to buy in and try hard, games will be close because it's elite level talent. No matter how you splice it, like obviously some players are better than others. We know that, but these guys are 0.01% athletes. They're the best athletes on the planet at football. You know what I mean? So if you get them bought in and you get them trying hard, you're not going to get very many 30-point blowouts, 40-point blowouts like we saw, in the Trestman era. And then towards the end of Nagy where things started getting lost with the locker room, like that's not really happening. Like the game that got out of hand was when our backup quarterback was in.
Yeah, and not for nothing, Frank. Like they're 3-10, and they still play hard. Like, and that was one of the things I really like to see. Like, Jalen Jones is obviously someone you and I had been ripping on left and right, and the Bears, and deservedly so. Let's be real about his talent level. But I mean, he's still playing hard, and the coaching staff gave him an opportunity to show something, and I was thoroughly impressed by it for about 90% of that game until obviously the end of the game there. Listen, the team is still, the defense is still playing hard, even though they lost multiple leaders on levels. And just think about what like Eddie Jackson said at the beginning of the season. Eberflus is getting these guys to buy in regardless of the results. And I think no one likes to lose, obviously, but I think these people they're real people. They understand football a lot better than we do, especially on the players' end of things. I think they know that once this team starts getting a little more talent, this could be something. So I think for what they've had to work with, I thought this coaching staff has been just normal, right? Like after the years and years of what we've had since Trestman, really. There's no more of the first quarter timeouts on the first drive when guys don't know where to line up, right? There's no more false starts when it's just like you absolutely can't have it. There's no more of the defensive pass interference that looks just so egregious. There's none of that the dumb shit that we've seen just for the last 10 plus years. This is a disciplined football team that I think once they get the talent needed, they'll win fucking games. I'm not concerned about them not being able to win games because the team, they beat the fucking Patriots this year, Frank. They went into Foxborough and fucking almost dropped 40 points on them. Like, that should not just be forgotten. It wasn't like one of their wins, it was the fucking Texans. You know what I mean? Like, come on, what are we doing here?
I agree. I mean,
and yes, we'll get to the negative Texans, but like,
we'll get to the negatives next week, obviously, but this year has been so much more positive because even in my outlook, what did I say? 7 wins, 6-7 wins. I thought was
7. I think we were kind of in the 7 to 9 range. Best case scenario.
And that was right. That's what I meant. Yeah. Like best case scenario was that range. I think we said the floor 5, 6, 5, something like that. I mean, just with the talent deficiency, but even without the wins and all that, like. Just the entertainment factor for at least for this year. Expectations will rise as they build and get better talent and things, but they've just been fun to watch, dude. And that in itself is so positive because the last 3 years of Trestman, the last year of Trestman, the last 3 years of Nagy, and then Fox was he was just sort of a bridge to get to build a team and then hand it off to someone who we'd hope to be better. But it's just they weren't watchable, and just to have that, like that's sort of was my ultimate point earlier. But just like be happy because you could watch this team, have fun, and have fun with it.
Because I saw a lot of people saying the same thing that I agreed with, where it was, remember the whole conversation last week was, should the Bears win? Should they lose? Should they win? Should they whatever? And part of the conversation was, okay, yes, they can win. I would be okay with them winning if it's Justin Fields is the reason they win.
Right.
If they win because of field goals and running the football and playing good defense, no, I don't want that. And I completely agreed with that. And because that's just not, and it's just not what I want at this point. But watching deep balls get thrown, N'Keal Harry making crazy catches, and Equanimeous St. Brown absolutely fucking burning Jari Alexander. It was incredible. And man, fuck Jari Alexander for a second. Calling EQ a fuck. I don't know if it was a joke, like because they were teammates.
Right. And we read the tweet, so we didn't see the tone. I didn't see the video. I don't know what the tonality was, but he's feeling himself a little bit too much for someone.
I saw Packers fans being like, he's like, this guy's, is he like trying to be the most hated guy in the league? So I don't know. Maybe that's a thing with him.
Maybe, but I mean, the Packers fans we know are not happy with him this year, not because of what he's saying, but if you can back that up and you can be Jalen Ramsey, go ahead and do that. But he has not been that this year. They've been very disappointed in him.
He got burned.
Yeah.
By Equanimeous St. Brown. Who can't catch a fucking football.
By the supposed bum.
He can't catch a football to save his fucking life. Like, he can't just, it's never easy. It's, okay, I got it. Like, come on, man. All right, Frank, that's enough positivity for one night. Let's go ahead and jump into our picks here. There's only, I think, 13 games. Like I said, there's 6 teams on bye week, which is fucking crazy. Thursday night, we got the Raiders at the Rams. I'm going Raiders. The Rams are a fucking mess. Give me the Raiders.
I'm going Raiders as well. Hey, the Raiders might fucking sneak in, dude.
They're playing a little better. They
are.
Some of those throws to Devontae Adams, man, that guy.
He's fucking insane. Yeah, he's nuts. And they saved their coach's job. There's no way he gets fired now. But I'm going Raiders.
Yeah, we need the Rams. I think in week 15, I think the Rams play the Broncos. And we need that can't be a tie. That can't be a tie. We need one of those teams to fucking win a game. We need them to win a game.
No, the
so
Rams
the Bears can secure the
week 15
pick.
is Rams Packers, which is winnable.
Very winnable. Because Packers suck. Minnesota at Detroit. I'm going Minnesota. Stop.
Hey, I'm riding this. I'm riding the Detroit train. I'm going Detroit. They're going to be right. They're going to sneak in. They're going to sneak into the fucking playoffs and win in the first round. You bet the house on that.
I mean, Jamal Williams apparently just can't stop scoring touchdowns.
He's at 16 now, right? Or 15?
Yeah, it's one of the most insane things I've ever seen.
Insane. That dude
just can't stop. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Frankie, come on, man. This is it. Pittsburgh, let's fucking go. Kenny Pickett, I'm telling you. I told you this in the fucking pre-draft process. I told you during the draft. This dude might be legit. He's just looked so fucking competent, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Give me Pittsburgh this week, baby.
Yeah, I mean, no Lamar, more than likely. The Steelers' defense has looked better as of late as well. I'm going with the Steelers. Najee Harris looked better as well, and maybe it was just having a better quarterback back there to loosen things up. There's not as many 8-man boxes, 9-man boxes. I'm going Steelers. They're starting to look better. I mean, just like I told you, but why did we ever doubt? Why did we ever think they were awful?
We doubted the GOAT.
Tomlin doesn't have bad. Like, he doesn't go under 500. He just doesn't
fuck around with this.
No.
And TJ Watt, man, just come on.
Yeah, he's insane.
That's Cleveland at Cincinnati. God damn, was it fucking hilarious. To Watt, I would have died of fucking laughter if Cleveland had lost that game because Deshaun Watson looked like
bad.
Fucking ass. Cincinnati, prove me right. Joe Burrow, god damn, do I love this guy. God, I love Joe Burrow. I love him so much, Frank. I'm going Cincinnati. Come on.
Yeah, I'm going Cincy as well. And Cleveland, I mean, they're not out of the hunt just yet, but they better hope that Deshaun Watson shakes off that rust because he looked.
He just looked footballs left and right. I mean, Jesus
I know
Christ.
Everything was low. It was very weird. But this ain't the week to do that at all. Joey B is on fire.
Jamar Chase is back.
Yeah.
D. Higgins. Tyler
I'm
Boyd
going
sucks.
Cincy.
Can I just say that Tyler Boyd, catch the fucking ball, man. Come on.
Yeah, well, he needs to catch the ball, but I mean, he's a perfect wide receiver 3. He's really good. He'd be our best receiver. Shit.
Yes, he would. Samaje Perine, by the way, I owe you an apology.
I refuse to apologize to that man.
Nah, come on. Jets at Buffalo. I'm going Buffalo. But man, Mike White might be something, Frank. He's helping me with Garrett Wilson, and I appreciate that. So thank you, Mike White.
Yeah, I'm going Buffalo as well. I told you they were crashing back down to earth after they beat the Bears going into the Vikings. They have a really good roster. Mike White is okay. He's competent,
hey,
but
if Garrett Wilson tells you that he's the guy, he's the fucking guy. All right, let's relax.
You're right.
Houston at Dallas. Come on, Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's not winning another game.
No, they're horrible. Philadelphia at the Giants. Give me Philly. AJ Brown just fucking cost the Titans GM his job. That's absolutely fucking hilarious.
He is just better. And you know what though? With his post-game press conference, man, I feel for Titans fans because that sucks to hear that for him to say like I wanted to be here. And there was a Titans fan on an NFL podcast that I listened to, and he speculated like when he requested the trade. I don't know what was it, the request, or he did something, but it was probably just like a negotiation tactic. They literally didn't go back to the drawing board. They gave him an offer. He said no, countered. They said, he countered. They said no. He said, okay, well, I'm going to request a trade, just like everybody does when they want more money. And they didn't talk to him again. They just traded him. And he was like, I really wanted to be there. Essentially said, I just want to get more money.
I was trying to get my money.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like such arrogance from a front office to say, no, you're not worth that money.
I mean, not for nothing, Treylon Burks he's been looking a lot better lately. But I mean, come on, you look at how this offense has basically just imploded these last couple of weeks, and it's like, and you watch what AJ Brown has been doing, and it's like, come on, man, like how did you think that this would be okay? Like that's wild.
And every time he makes some of these plays, I think about like the offseason topics that we'll inevitably cover, top receivers in the league, of just, more general things because there's not much going on in the offseason. Wide receiver is going to be really fucking hard to rank, dude. There's a lot of really good receivers.
Little preview. I think right now, I'm not looking at it. My top 3 would probably be, and I'm not going to say 1 through 3 because I don't fucking know. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson. Like, that's crazy to think that AJ Brown might not even be in the top 3, but like, I don't know how you argue those 3.
I think the only 2 that you can have pushback with are Stephon Diggs and Jamar Chase. But that's like I feel this way. I feel this the same way I feel about rappers. I have like 50 rappers in my top 10. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're still like, I have like at this point I have like 10 receivers in my top 5.
Yeah, you wake up and you're like, but see that's the thing that I think pisses me off the most, Frank, is there's like a million top 10 wide receivers and the Bears have none of them. And it's just we didn't even bother trying to get one. Fucking goddamn. Look at what Christian Watson is goddamn doing, and it's like, come on. Why are we wasting second round picks on fucking corners and safe? Now I'm getting upset.
Come on. Move on, Jackie. What's the next game?
Wait, are you going Philly or Giants?
I'm going Philly.
Okay. Jacksonville, Tennessee. That being said, I'm going to go Tennessee this week. Jacksonville, I had high hopes for them on the road. And then, man, how is that not a flag on Trevor Lawrence? The guy's diving at his knee. How was that not a flag? I don't understand.
They're a little too inconsistent with those types of calls, especially knowing the call that the call they gave to Marcus Mariota on the Bears. It's strange. I'm going Titans as well, though. I mean, I think in an alternate universe where we were born in Jacksonville, Florida, we'd be stoked. Well, that's what I mean. Like, we'd be having very similar conversations about Trevor Lawrence that we did about Justin Fields. These two are clearly you could debate in who's number 1 and who's number 2, but these two are clearly the 2 guys from their draft that have the potential to be superstars.
I was glad to see him come back in the second half, and it sounds like he's okay.
It sounds like he's that looked bad on replay, dude. He's fine. Yeah. I mean, he's a fucking that's nuts.
Yeah, that was very encouraging. I mean, that was you do one of those, because you've seen obviously the bad leg injuries, but it sounds like he's okay. He came in obviously through a touchdown. Didn't matter, but fantasy wise, respect Trevor Lawrence. Kansas City at Denver. I mean, come the fuck on. Denver is just they are so unbelievably bad. I can't. It's so hard to fathom how it's gotten. I mean, okay. You and I both were pretty much in the same range about who Russell Wilson was, right? I did not think it was going to be this bad. I'm going to be real with you. I thought it would. He would not probably put up 40 touchdowns, but like, come on, man. Like, this team sucks. I'm going Kansas City, obviously, but man, Denver is just that's because they have such a good defense. It sucks. This is literally they're the Bears. They're the fucking Bears.
Do you know what their highest point total on the season is? Denver's?
I mean, it's got to be like 16 or 17, right?
23. They've only scored 20 points twice. 23 in a loss against Vegas and 21 in a win against Jacksonville. And I saw a stat. I don't remember exactly what it was. They've only scored more than one touchdown on offense twice this year. That is abysmal. I don't think think of like the offenses the Bears grew up on. I don't think it was ever like this. I mean, because we could run the ball like Thomas Jones
I don't know. It was probably pretty
the pass
close,
offense is probably just as bad, but the offense as a whole is what I mean. Like, wow, they are astonishingly bad.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
This game may be one of those ones that's a little bit closer on paper, just because the Chiefs are going to be able to do whatever the fuck they want. Like they can just like test things out against the Broncos.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're going Chiefs. It's not even a question. But I just want to make sure we get it on record. Carolina at Seattle. I'm going Seattle. I know they're having some issues. Kenneth Walker is hurt, but this Seahawks team is still better than Carolina.
I agree. But sometimes I almost want to pick an upset because the Panthers just have these weeks where they look really fucking good. It's just like randomly.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks are they starting to skid a little bit, just a tad. It's like a little slices in the armor. I'm going Seahawks though because they're far more talented. But I don't know. I feel like the Panthers' defensive talent just like pops up every now and then. They look really fucking good. Yeah. And I don't know if I guess I picked the Lions. I guess that's my upset of the week. I'm going Seattle.
So Frank, full disclosure, I do not have an answer for this next one yet. I was hoping we could kind of talk through it and help me get there. Tampa Bay at San Francisco. Because on one hand, I'm like, it's got to. I was like so quick to write San Francisco, but I'm like, God, what if it's Brock Purdy? What if it's Baker Mayfield? Like I love Brock Purdy. My brother went to Iowa State. I've watched a ton of Iowa State games. I've seen Brock Purdy play. Like, I was not surprised by what he was able to do last week. But on the other hand, man, this is something we talked about a couple weeks ago. Tom Brady is getting on one of these fucking runs. I'm telling you. They're going to win this fucking division. They're going to win a game in the playoffs, be in the NFC title game, some bullshit like that.
Yep.
But San Francisco, they're the better team. Right?
They are, but I mean, they're starting to fall apart a little bit as well. CMC is already looking hurt. Quarterback is donezo. I mean, for them to score 33 still against Miami, I think shows you how good of a play caller and offensive coach that Kyle Shanahan is.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
but I don't think you can't do Mr. Irrelevant for the rest of the year, right? I mean, if they do, by all means, I can't see the Bucs losing this game. Say that again.
I bet they wish they had CJ Beathard back.
Probably, yeah. I'd give them more of a chance, but
all right, I'm going Tampa. I'm going
Tampa.
I'm trusting the GOAT. We'll see what happens. Miami at the Chargers. Frank, I'm going back-to-back losses for Miami. Fuck it. Chargers. Going Chargers. I don't know. Wasn't quite sure. Obviously, Tua's missing both his left tackle and his right tackle. I think Jalen Waddle did get hurt. I don't know if he's going to play this week. But man, this is kind of exactly what I was not waiting for, but sort of expecting when it came to Tua. I mean, you get pressure on him, and he's just like, when things aren't clicking and guys aren't wide open, he just doesn't look the part. He doesn't look like a guy who's tops in the league. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's it. I'm going with the Dolphins. I can't trust the Chargers to win when they need to, and they need to run the table.
Yeah.
Maybe not run the table, but they've got to. I mean, they only have one more loss in them before you're looking towards maybe two. You can probably get away with one loss, but they have to change that coaching staff, dude. It's not working. They have too much talent. I mean, we talked about the development of young quarterbacks and like Herbert, and Mahomes being those people who are making it harder on younger quarterbacks. They want them to come in and just dominate right away. But he came in with such good weapons. They should not be 6-6 right now. They should not be still struggling in one-score games. Like it's annoying watching them because they should be so much better than what they are. And I think the Dolphins take this one.
I'm realizing that's the Sunday night game too, which the NFL's just they love doing this shit, having the conversation pulled up. Should they have drafted Tua? Should they have drafted Justin Herbert, et cetera, et cetera?
Holy shit, though! Could you imagine Herbert?
I know. I was just gonna say Herbert in this fucking Dolphins offense.
My God.
Ooh, come on, because that looks better than with Tua. I don't hate Tua. I really don't.
He doesn't pass the eye test, dude.
I think people are getting a little ahead of themselves, honestly, with this.
The thing is he may be perfect for what's being asked of him. I think he's going to be one of those dudes, if these guys have continued success, that you can win with him. You're not winning because of him. You know what I mean? He's not a bad quarterback by any means.
He's like a Jimmy G.
I think Jimmy G may have more arm talent.
Dang. Okay. All right. Has Miami been in the spotlight this year?
That's a good
question.
question.
Like it's the same four fucking teams. It's the Broncos.
The NFC East Chiefs. They get six dates to themselves every year in prime time. Yeah. So.
Oh God.
I know, that's a good question. I don't think they have. Not that I can remember anyway.
It's weird. But Monday night is going to be even worse. New England at Arizona. Good Lord. Frank, I'm going with Arizona. Simply because, listen, I know Belichick is very good against young quarterbacks, and I know Kyler isn't exactly the most studious quarterback in the world, obviously, but I just don't know how the Patriots are going to score the fucking football. That offense is just so gross. How is Matt Patricia still? Wasn't he a defensive guy? Am I misremembering? Wasn't he their defensive coordinator for fucking years?
Yes.
Why is he calling plays? What is going on? I'm so confused.
I am too, but if there's one story of this season for each team, it's that the Patriots have found ways to manufacture points and get wins, and the Cardinals have found ways to lose ball games. They can't win, dude. I mean, it's just because there was what game was it? Was it the Seahawks game? Or maybe the Minnesota. There was a game where I know they were up 24-10, and I was like, oh, they're gonna coast to this one. And I just completely stopped paying attention to them, and they wound up losing by a point or two. And I was like, what in the world just happened in the last quarter and a half of football, or quarter? I think it was the start of the fourth. They find ways to lose, dude, and that to me is just a sign of bad coaching. Agreed. And Bill still has that thing where he's going to allow you to shoot yourself in the foot.
It's hard not to pick the Patriots in a game like this, but I just can't in good faith because that offense just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. It doesn't do anything well.
But the defense is pretty fucking good.
They are. But one thing Bill Belichick has always had trouble with is quarterbacks who can move, and Kyler is obviously one of the best when it comes to that. And just those receivers, God damn, can the Bears trade for Hollywood Brown? Can they do that? I'd be cool with that. I know the Cardinals just traded for him.
That is an exercise that I want to do in the offseason, Jack, of look around the league at disgruntled potential disgruntled players, losing teams they're going to have new coaching staffs.
Because Frank, if you think about it, if the Cardinals do make a decision to make changes both at the GM level and the coaching staff as well, like you never know what players are going to pop up and be available. DeAndre Hopkins is about to turn. He might actually be 30. I think he is 30 now. I think he's turning 31. Like if you can get something for him, you can make an offer. See what you can get. You can see if you can get a guy like that. I would absolutely fucking love DeAndre Hopkins on the Bears, or get Hollywood Brown. You just never know when changes like that happen, who becomes available. So definitely the Cardinals are a team to keep an eye on, because there's just so many weapons there that you're like, okay, what could potentially pop up? So I think that would be a fun exercise for sure. Bye-week teams this week: the Bears, Green Bay, Washington, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Indianapolis. Good luck to anybody who has literally any players on those teams this week. Frankie, I need one win. I need one win to get in the playoffs. I think we can do it. I think we can do it, Frankie.
You got this. I have faith in you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, this has been the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He's Frank. Next week, we will come back to discuss Bears.
Eagles. We're going to get the fucking doors blown off us.
No, come on. That'll be a fun fucking... You know what? I'm actually really excited for that game.
Well, the Bears offense may score 27. It's just the defense is going to give about 50.
It'll be perfect to see the comparisons between Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, and just how, and Ryan Poles can watch that game. Yes.
I'm going to write a letter to Ryan Poles. He just needs to kidnap A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
And force them to trade him to the Bears for a second.
Can we get Devonta Smith at least? I'd take Devonta Smith, man.
I would too. He looks really good.
Give me something. Give me a receiver. Come on, Ryan. Pay attention. Watch the fucking game and realize how far your quarterback could go with a goddamn wide receiver, instead of drafting second-round corners and safeties.
But you know what? Oh, man. You know what might open things up?
Making that catch against Dallas Cowboys, Frank?
He's looked good, dude. I think he's looked good all year. I think he's looked better than Pickens, to be honest with you. And that may not be the case as years go on, but Alec Pierce has looked good. If we trade back and we acquire multiple firsts in this year's draft, that would allow us to trade a first to get a receiver and then get a defensive lineman. Make it happen.
Carter picking up quarterbacks with one fucking arm. That was absolutely wild. That was crazy.
It was nuts. Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Later, Jackie. Later, everybody.